Yeah. At least mine does. All right. I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Guitar with us.
I wasn't sure where he usually has them. All right, go ahead and call the roll.
Trustee Spurling.
Here.
Trustee Lee.
Here.
Trustee Heinz. Trustee Youngerman.
Here.
And Trustee Marisak.
Here. Learn about a little more. We do have a quorum this evening. I'll move on to public participation, public comment period. 2-minute opportunity for any member of the public. Now would be your opportunity. Going once. All right. And we'll move on to item B, which is the MEDC update. Shar?
Right there.
Moving furniture around.
So this is new for me right here, so can you hear me?
Barely.
Barely?
Barely.
Oh,
Hold on, Jeff will handle it.
Yep, you go ahead, we got you.
okay.
Thank you.
How's that? It's so quiet in here. This just feels strange, but I'll get used to it. So thank you, everybody, for giving me the opportunity to be here this evening. Usually twice a year, I do an update. I was here last August, and although I'm here most of the board meetings, I get this opportunity to talk about the last 6 months and then looking into the future or any changes, and then, of course, moving forward. The one thing I wanted to mention was that in June, we'll be celebrating 15 years in Montgomery, the MEDC. So I want to thank everybody for that. I think it's a nice milestone for us, and it says a lot about us in this region. I know in August, I talked a lot about change, and one of the changes I brought up had to do with us going from Gusto Packing, which was a small family-owned business, to then Butterball, which was a nationally traded business, and we went from 1 product to 2 products, and then to the Buddig factory, or Carl Buddig family, which they have several companies underneath them. But one of the stories that they shared with us early on was how they always remembered Montgomery because they had did business with both Fox River Foods and with Gusto Packing. And that says a lot for the community that somebody would remember us and then decide to grow in the community. In December, they had about 440 jobs, and they're not even using half of their building yet. So hopefully that could double in time. And so I just wanted to point out that things will continue to change, but sometimes change is good. Now this slide and this project has been, or Caterpillar, let's say, has been a discussion for the last several years, but we're getting closer and closer to a home run. I know that I can't really say anything, but since December, there's been negotiations, and I think this could be a change for the good. Not only is this company looking at acquiring the entire site, but they would also be acquiring an adjacent building across the street. So hopefully by the time I report again, we'll be able to talk about it and hopefully celebrate the new opportunities that we'll have. VVF is another huge change for Montgomery. Many, many years ago, it was the lead employer under Dial, and of course, over the last few years, we went from about 287 employees to about 50 to 60. We still keep in contact with them. We still work with some of the staff there, and they are looking to possibly sublease their property and hopefully utilize the rail yard. They put about $4 million in the yard about 2010 or 9. So hopefully that could be something that could be used again. They currently are working with Eric Pitcher with BNSF, and they keep us, they keep in touch with us, and we work with staff to let them know what's going on. Also, I mentioned with the Caterpillar site, there's a strong possibility that 2001 baseline might be purchased. Then we have 2 years to find another building for the current tenant. So Rich and I have been talking about that, and we hope to be, again, proactive in leases that are expiring in the next few years. And that's something that is really very positive for the community, and also just the way Montgomery is, that we look ahead for the future, and I think that's something good for the community. So we will have some changes on the MEDC board. We don't know all of the changes, but one change is that Don Kalish, who's been serving as our treasurer for almost 7 or 8 years, has taken on a role with another non-for-profit, and so he'll be turning the reins over to Jonathan Shedden, who actually is the director of accounting for Rush Copley. So we'll still be in good hands as far as the accounting for the MEDC. Dr. Neil Schlupp, I'm not sure that everybody knows, but he had a slight, he just had a mishap this weekend and did have a stent placed in his widowmaker, is what they call it. He needs to rest for a few weeks, and he hopes to return back to work at least once or twice a week. So I know many of us are clients of his, and we just need to let him let go sometimes. So again, changes downtown are bound to happen. I know that some people have concerns about the South Moon departure. However, they also closed in Sandwich. I'm not sure if everybody knew that. And the good news is now the owners of the property are considering a sale, which previously they never did. Although the rent is still pretty high, I have the listing if anyone wants to look at it. I think the hard part is trying to make enough food and be open enough days to cover your expenses. And then they would probably need to utilize all 3 floors as well, but we'll be working on that as well. I also want to applaud the village for their effort in addressing Alice's old place and making that property available. Hopefully we'll be able to develop it into something positive and makes it much easier when you at least are working, you know, at ground zero versus all the other unknowns when you're trying to find things to redevelop that property. I think we're also looking for more destination type businesses. As we looked at Robert, who was still looking at the River building. He's an antique dealer. He has at least 8 to 12 different businesses that want to come in and sublet in a building. So now we're just trying to get the owner of the building to bring the building up to code, add the sprinkler system, and hopefully that could be another opportunity for people to walk along the river, shop, eat, and so on. And then in November last year, by December, we were told by David that he's changing his career path. He was in my office for 3 years with Country Financial. And within 24 hours, I had 2 people who wanted to come in my office. So Christine Hyman did have a little clout. She had rented from us before, so we did know that she paid her rent. So that being said, she's returned to the MEDC office, and she hopes in the near future to have some classes and some activities downtown. She's used to doing different things for first-time home buyers, so it's a good opportunity again for the MEDC office and exposure on the downtown. We also had some infill development. Genesis Beauty Supply opened in December of last year, which is part of our Douglas Road corridor. She is ecstatic. She works long hours, and she said she's always busy. Sometimes she tries to close at 9, and people are walking in at 8 minutes to 9, but she's still happy, and people are always going in and out. So that was definitely a needed product. And again, the more people that we have in the community and filling up that area, it brings new opportunities to us. New construction, we were blessed, in my opinion, with a second Dollar Tree, but that's me. I was on a tight budget, and I really have enjoyed them. They've been doing events every weekend. I do think they might need to address their parking because the parking lot has been full, I mean literally full. So hopefully I won't get any tickets for being on the sidelines because I can never find a parking spot. But again, new construction, new development, and hopefully people from Oswego shopping in Montgomery, building up our tax base. The MEDC has annual events. I gave everybody some save the date cards. In August last year, I talked about the golf outing. For the first time, we changed locations. We actually had over 104 golfers. We had 114 registered, and another 20 attended the dinner. So it was a pretty good event. We raised over $10,000, so that helps take some of the burden off of the marketing in the MEDC and the village by getting contributions from the business community. It was also a great time. Everybody got to meet different people, and those relationships continued to build. Again, we still have our holiday party. I change the date or play with the date occasionally. We seem to keep moving up in December, but I did give you those dates. Again, another opportunity to meet people. We will continue with the Showcase Montgomery. Every year we find out new things of things that have happened. I do know that the people who had purchased the old Stan Zeplock property, this was one of the pictures, he got completely full by the time we left, and I keep asking him to build a few more buildings because it's nice to have 1,000 to 5,000 square feet with warehouse and office. So again, those businesses can grow into bigger businesses and stay in Montgomery. We'll continue with ICSC and the retail show and the retail connection. Those are opportunities that we get to get in front of retailers, let them know where Montgomery is, who we are, and what our demographics are, and basically who's expanding and who's looking to expand in the Chicagoland market. And we continue to increase views and interaction on the website, the newsletter, and social media and Facebook. Of course, they're free and people are very active, and I always get notices about our open rate and congratulations and all these great things. But I think that it's important to keep in front of people and to share good news, and everybody can help with the economic activity in the community. Partnerships are very crucial to the community. As everybody knows, a lot of our business members and partners get involved in other events. I know that Fox Metro, Ozinga, a lot of the businesses in the area participated in the Halloween event, as well as they get involved in our golf outing and also participate in Montgomery Fest. The workforce group and the colleges are also very important, and we continue to work with both Kane County and Kendall County on different opportunities that come into the region. So looking ahead, there's continued interest and new development. Both the location for McAllister's Deli and Ricky Rockets are both looking for additional tenants. So hopefully we'll get to post that and see who's interested in adding some retail space on either one of those corridors. And the new apartment complex that broke ground, I think that's good. It provides some, opportunities for younger people and also, people who might not have a home or be able to purchase a home. Rentals in Montgomery were pretty tough. I know I spent 7 years trying to find somewhere to rent. So I also think there'll be continued growth in the TIF district. I think one of the things that we just continue to look at is the type of business that we want in that corridor and what's acceptable to the community and the village and staff. And then from there, we'll build and things will come. So I think we've had a lot of interest. I think sometimes we just are picking, let's say, better opportunities for better jobs. And that's about it. I did want to say we will also continue to outreach hotels and conference centers. Retail, again, I have some concerns with some of the labor laws and the labor changes. I hope that doesn't hurt our retail. I think that we might end up with smaller retail spaces, but hopefully whatever happens in the changes, that we can address them and make sure that our businesses succeed. So that was quick. Special thanks to everybody who's been a part of my world. All of you are. You help me do my job. Without you, I can't do anything. And so that includes the village board, staff, administration, the business community, even residents often share what they want and hopefully will use and participate in, as well as the partners, the board, and the members. And last but not least, the media, who always help get the word out, get good things out there, and help us do what we do best. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can. And turn this off.
Sure, quick question.
Sure.
The property tour, is that going to be, I know in the past you've done where it's either industrial or it's retail. Is it going to be one type of property again, or will it just be showcasing anything that's vacant?
Probably not. The last couple years, we've been able to actually showcase Montgomery as a whole. We've gone inside retail. We went into Lucky's last year. We went into the property over by the dance studio. So we've done multiple different properties and tours. So probably the last 3 years, we've been combining them and also land, because within an hour and a half to 2 hours we're done, and everybody's had an opportunity to go inside a few buildings. I mean, we're very fortunate we don't have a lot of vacancies, but we do have some vacancies, and the more exposure and the more new people that come and see it, the better. So the last few years we usually start out downtown and then address whatever we have available and who participates. So I think we had 9 on the schedule and we ended up showing about 6 or 7. So, and it was a variety. So and we've tried June, April, July, and this October seemed to be pretty good. So I'm shooting for October 5th. I think whatever date I put on that
10.
card. I think it's, so.
Okay, thank you.
Justin, you missed it. You want me to start all over?
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Appreciate it.
Do you want me to shut this off? Or better not?
All right. I'll move on to the consent agenda this evening. I'll read the items and entertain a motion for approval. Minutes of the village board meeting of February 25th, building report for February of 2019, water production report, February of 2019, accounts payable through March 7th, appointment of Mike Hammond to Plan Commission, and the appointment, and these are both reappointments, of Pat Kelsey to Plan Commission as well.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
And Trustee Lee.
Yes.
That carries 4-0. Thank you. Items for separate action, we have recommendation of Plan Commission on PC 2018-021, special use request for outdoor storage located at 800 South River Street. This is FH Passion. And then at the same time, we'll be discussing ordinance 1850, which is the first reading of the temporary special use. And with that, I'll ask Director Young for a summary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, you have before you the petition of the leaseor of the property that is out for outside storage north of the Fox Metro sanitary plant. The property is currently owned by Avalon LLC, but being acquired by the Fox Metro Sanitary District as we know it at this time. The area is part of a 45-acre site that includes a cap of an old plant that was on site with some environmental concerns. There's a asphalt pad that cannot be penetrated. The storage is not within that part of the 45 acres. The current use is a non-conforming use that's within the M2 General Manufacturing District. Last fall, village staff notified the petitioner that there was a non-conforming use on the property. They started the process of applying for a special use, and a public hearing was held before the Plan Commission recently. The petitioner has noted that they have purchased additional property or other property in the south suburbs, and they intend to eventually move all of their equipment and material that they have on site here in the village to this other site at a later date. They have construction projects all over the area, and as material and equipment are pulled out of this site, they go to construction sites. The material and the equipment will not be returning to the site here in the village, but will go to, as we understand it, their new site that they're developing in South Holland. So over time, we believe that this site will improve in terms of the number of pieces of equipment and material. So in reviewing the request, it's not really the desire of the staff to recommend temporary special uses. That really hasn't been a good experience for the village in the past. However, in order to try to work through the situation with this non-conforming use, we felt that it was reasonable to recommend to the Plan Commission that there'll be a 12-month period from the potential approval of the temporary special use for which they would vacate the property. And then a year from now, we would have a situation where the property would be vacant. Future use of the site would be under the control of Fox Metro for possible expansion at a much later date. They don't have any immediate plans to expand. Obviously, they're just now completing a major expansion of their facility. As you approved a few months ago, there is the potential that on that capped area I mentioned earlier with the asphalt that we would have, as you're aware, the potential for some solar panels as a part of a program with the state if that funding comes through. So with that, staff and the Plan Commission have recommended that under certain conditions that this temporary special use could continue. We don't feel that there's really any reasonable way to screen the property, especially along the north from the elevated US Route 30. There is no practical way to put in any amount of landscaping to help try to screen it. So we just felt that that was a requirement that wasn't reasonable to request. There are two access points technically into this site now, one by way of River Street and one by way of Railroad Street. We'd ask that the board consider just limiting the access to the Railroad Street location now is the only access that they actually utilize, but there is the potential that there is a gate at the River Street portion of the property, so we would ask that that not be used in the future. And that's it. Oh, I'm sorry, there is currently gravel and some asphalt remnants from the previous use on the site where their storage is actually taking place now. Typically, if this was intended to be a long-term use, the staff and DEI would look to recommend a more permanent surface, but in as much as we would hope that this would be vacated in a year, we're not asking them to, we're not recommending that you ask for them to put in a new surface.
All right. Any
And the
questions?
applicant is here tonight if you have any questions.
Okay. Any questions for staff or the petitioner?
I have a couple. I'm a little concerned because it's been an ongoing problem and we haven't seemed to be able to get any compliance up to date. And it states in their letter that their lease is good through 2021. So they're going to vacate the property in 12 months and then have a 2-year lease on property that they're going to leave vacant?
Well, we intentionally did not get involved in their lease situation. We understand that they're under lease, and it goes until 2021 or the end of 2021. They have stated at the public hearing with the Plan Commission that they fully intend to, if this temporary special use is approved, vacate the site within 12 months of the approval.
And what recourse do we have if that doesn't occur?
If they don't vacate within the,
Yeah.
it would be the same enforcement that we would have for any other similar situation, a code enforcement issue. We could start citing them. They're outside. Once the special use expires, it would be a per violation per day situation. So we would have the normal legal remedies that we would otherwise have.
Okay.
In other words, it would be like all the other messes we have in town where the people just don't care what they do, basically. This has been more than just, I noticed we caught them in 2018, but what you're saying is they're probably there, 3-4 more years before that? So they never really tried to get any kind of compliance, and we never really,
My understanding is that obviously there's been storage on this site for literally decades. Users may have changed. I don't have a timeline of who's been on the site in what time frame. I believe that they would tell you, and the gentleman from FH Passion can speak to this, but I believe that they've been on the site for over 8 years. The extent of the storage was much less than what it is now. This ramped up over time, and it was particularly noticeable to staff last fall when there was much larger equipment that had been placed on site that had previously been there. Typically, it had been, and there's, in your handout, there's an aerial that shows 2 specific areas that are shaded. Typically, the storage had been closer to the tree line along the river, literally under the trees, and then further to the south. This ramped up in terms of the amount of storage over the last 18 months, let's say. Maybe longer, I'm not sure, but I noticed it personally within the last year that it had been significantly more storage area than it had been in the past.
but they were never in compliance even 11 years ago or whatever.
That's correct.
Right, and we have a lot of companies that do that. We have a lot of companies that we've told them to do a certain thing, and they just kind of keep doing it, and there's no way of really,
Well, I think we've cracked down on a lot of the temporary special uses or special uses that had been approved previously. There is some stuff that's pre-existing that over the years had never been enforced in terms of site control, but we're doing what we can to clean up those sites now.
go ahead.
Follow-up question then for the attorney. If it's something that we haven't been enforcing, did we forfeit any rights to enforce?
No, we wouldn't have forfeited any rights to enforce, but it does become more difficult over time, generally, to go back when something has been there longstanding. And I think that's why we proposed the temporary special use, to be understanding of the situation, that there was, a time that this acquired during. So in the same token, even though we don't generally approve of it, we're trying to be cognizant of that.
Okay. Doug, did you have more questions?
I'm curious as to what Fox Metro's, since they're the owner of the property, what are their thoughts about the village granting a special, non-conforming special use on property that they own? I'm not sure.
And according to Director Young, they don't quite
Process
own
of
it yet.
acquiring the property, as I
Okay.
understand it.
Okay.
Just,
Yeah, if you want to come down, you can. That's perfect, thanks.
Can you make sure that mic is turned on, please?
Hello?
Yes.
I think part of it, though, relies upon the village, because had we had enforcement properly in the beginning, we wouldn't have an asphalt cap at the far south end of that property.
Right, agreed.
Honestly, the asphalt cap has to do with the General Electric plant, or the Western Electric plant, whatever it was, from many years ago.
That's what I
And the
mean.
contamination. So I don't know that you can blame the village for the fact that there was contamination on the property.
Greg Munson, I'm the village attorney, or the attorney for Fox Metro, so I can address any questions regarding Fox Metro. And to touch a little bit on Rich, we have acquired the property. We did, it's in condemnation still, but we've deposited the money and we've gotten title to it. We haven't, the final compensation's not been determined yet, but we do own the property now, so we are fee title owners, so to address that issue. And then as far as any uses, we're certainly fine with a non-conforming use, and the issue, it sounds like this is a good solution based on the issues presented here, being there so long the way it is. So we have no problem with the special use, the way it's granted here. I think that's a good solution, given the fact that they're not going to be there long-term, so.
Whose crane is that down there now? Who owns the crane down there?
Passion?
You do?
Yeah. And
Okay.
The crane is there to move material out. Just to give everybody just a little bit of background, when we found out that we were in non-conforming use, we've been out there since 2010. In our last lease, I don't know, it was maybe 2-3 years ago now, we did negotiate a purchase option on the property. So what Mr. Young is saying, it happened because we had a purchase option. We started to bring more stuff out there, so we got kind of caught in a trick back. So back now is probably in September, October last year, when we found out that the village didn't want to use that space for construction site, which is, it's not unique to us. We know certain villages don't like that type of storage. We went out and started to find an alternative. We bought the property in South Holland. It has to be, we're putting in roads and everything else. But when we knew they didn't want us here to the end of the lease, we've sped that process up. And that crane that's out there now is loading trucks and taking trucks to the new site on the portions that have already been developed and where the roads are in. So I will guarantee you that we'll be out before the end of the year. That's our plan. We have no reason to slow that down and not get out. We want to be a good neighbor. That's part of our corporate culture everywhere we go. We just, don't want to be a nuisance. I know we've caused some problems here, and we apologize for that, but we're going to get out as quickly as we can.
Sir, what's your position with FH Passion?
I'm their chief financial officer.
Okay, a couple things. I'm willing to take, and I don't know your name, sir.
Jim Hapschmidt.
I'm willing to take Jim's word. I've worked as a subcontractor with FH Passion for over a decade, and I've found that they do what they say that they're going to do. If they are finding out that they're a non-conformance, I find it a little hypocritical that the village doesn't want a construction site here, but yet we've got Michael's on Orchard Road, which has construction equipment. But we don't want a construction yard here, but we're willing, to put a wastewater treatment facility. If we're talking about aesthetics, I mean, it's a little, well, which one do you want? I would have been fine with FH Passion staying there, but I'm willing to take this gentleman at his word, and if he says that they're going to be gone in a year, they're going to be gone in a year.
I would kind of echo those, some of those comments with regards to having FH Passion here at the table. They signed a lease for the property, and they're willing to come before us today to rectify that. And this will change hands into Fox Metro's ownership. So I think it's nice to have a willing partner. I think many can agree that we generally wouldn't allow unscreened outdoor storage of whatever material it would be. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about that. We require a lot of other of our businesses to install fencing, which we talked about at our last meeting, landscaping, that kind of thing. It is impossible and impractical to do that in this location. So I think it's nice that we solidify an agreement and look forward to rectifying the situation, so.
And I agree that maybe you do business with them, and that's fine, but if you remember when JP Tree came in, people said, I do business with them, they're great. And what do? You know, the mulch is, there's 20 piles down there, and they're all way too high, and at the beginning, I think he didn't pay his rent to those people, and I don't know, do you pay rent there now?
What happened is it changed hands, and, you know, we haven't pushed this legally, but we had an option to purchase, and our option to purchase was passed over. So getting off the property is a proper resolution to the whole situation, in my opinion.
So no rent, is that what you're saying?
That's right, now we're not paying rent, correct, because we believe the lease was breached.
But again, I think that's outside of our purview.
It is. The one thing you mentioned at the planning commission, you mentioned that you put in place on that island, or on that land, you put in pieces that were maybe cut too short or the wrong, you know, you didn't use, so that was your surplus. And so right away, I figured, by the way you said that you weren't going to take a lot out of there and use it. It was like your surplus, so you had to put some more.
I never said we had surplus material out there, no. That is actual material is used in construction sites. It's non-permanent material that gets pulled out and gets used again. Now, some of it could sit there for a while to have the exact same size and
Right.
diameter and thickness to use. That's why we put
It's
it out
not
at
the popular ones, it was that you use
it's
every
everything.
day.
It's
Right.
everything for that type of business. It's our foundation business, puts in caissons, you know, footings for bridges, things of that nature, and earth retention systems. So it's all the metal from that. Most of the time, that metal doesn't stay in the ground. You pull it out and then you reuse it.
I really don't. Looking at the December 2021 is not much longer than in 1 year, somewhat. And I don't, if you have a lease, you got a lease, and I don't think, since they've been there that long, and really, I don't care if he finishes his lease even, but the special use, you're giving them something that he's had for a long time without a special use. So we give him a special use. It ain't gonna make a difference if you decline it or not. He's got a lease, the stuff's gonna be there till 2021, say. I guess I don't,
Just to be clear, we are not recommending that we're going to stay there to 2021. We're working with the staff, when we knew that they didn't want the construction yard on that site, that's when we went out and bought another site with the intention to get out as fast as we possibly can, as safely as we can. It was obviously a tough winter, but when we knew we had to get out, I had people working on the other site through the whole winter, trying to get it prepared and get ready, you know, crushing stone, putting in roads and things of that nature. So it's not even in our mindset that we would be out there until 2021. We're going to try and get out as quickly as we possibly can, and we've probably removed, if you went out there, probably about a third of the materials are already gone. Unfortunately, I told the Planning Commission that we were going to try and get the materials that were closest to Route 30 off as fast as we could, but the new site where the materials are going wasn't ready. But I told people, well, just get the stuff out of there that we have that's already prepared, get it out, because it'll save time on the end, and, you know, we'll make sure we hit the date.
Thank you.
Mike, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tracy.
I just wanted, did you have something for what was just said? Because I need to go back to something.
Go away.
Okay. Director Young, you had mentioned the preference is for them to use the entrance off of Railroad versus River.
which is what they're using now.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, I didn't see it in the recommendation from Plan Commission, and I didn't see it in our ordinance. Do we need to put that in our ordinance?
It'll be in our ordinance.
Is all your own drivers doing this? Or do you have outside people helping you move it?
It's our people loading, and we hire International Trucking is trucking the materials for us.
Because there's been trucks on River Street at that gate, and they're probably using their GPS, and it shows it's going there, and then they're stuck in a residential, then there's no way of turning around, so they're backing up. It hasn't been recently, but they have done it in the last couple of months, and
Okay, I'll make sure I rectify that, because it's only one trucking company, and they should know, because they haul most of that material to and from that yard. But I'll follow up and make sure that doesn't happen.
thank you.
My concern was how was Fox Metro with this? So I appreciate your candor and working with the petitioner and the petitioner for being so amicable and trying to get this fixed quickly and working with staff. Staff spoke highly of the conversations you've had. so.
Before we cut off, I just want to make sure that I thank the staff, Mr. Young, and the people that we work with for navigating us through this process. We appreciate the help.
Any other questions for the petitioner or for staff on the item? All right, thank you both, appreciate it. All right, at this time, I'd entertain a motion on the recommendation of Plan Commission, PC 2018-021.
I move to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission.
Second?
Call the roll.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
And Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
That carries 4-0. We will not be taking action on ordinance 1850. It's first reading. Any objection to putting that on consent?
No.
At the next meeting?
No.
All right, we'll do that. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to B, C, and D, generally speaking, we'll discuss all together, and then we'll take independent action. We have the award of a contract to Geneva Construction for our 2019 MFT and Infrastructure Road Program in the amount of $3.4 million. Resolution 2019-004, authorizing the use of MFT funds for part of those road improvements. And item D is a PSA with EEI for construction engineering for that 2019 program. With that, I'll ask Administrator Zolfo for a summary.
Sure. I was just going to, Matt covered it. I was going to, so, the B, C, and D all tie together. B and D you see every year. B is the actual road program, the company that's going to do the construction. And item D then is the construction engineering that we hire EEI to do. Item C is the MFT. We use MFT funds every other year. We try and build them up so we can do a larger project. And for doing that, we have to do the MFT resolution. With that, I would see if Mark has anything he'd like to add. Otherwise, we will answer any questions you have.
We stole your whole presentation.
Yep.
It's okay. Yeah. Awesome. In total, this year, I asked Engineer Wallers for this, our 2019 program, with this and the LAFO that we previously approved for Alcott Road, we're going to be resurfacing about 10 miles of roadway at a cost of just under $4 million. So if you think about where we were 5 years ago, this is a huge improvement, and you'll see that when most of Foxmore and Fairfield is being resurfaced this year. So it's a huge improvement, one that we all kind of push very hard for. So with that, any questions on item B? It's the award of the contract to Geneva Construction.
No. Motion to approve?
Second.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
That carries 4-0. Item C, Resolution 2019-004. This is authorizing the use of MFT funds.
So move?
Second.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
That carries 4-0. Item D is the PSA with EEI for construction engineering for this project.
So moved?
Second.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
That carries 4-0. Thank you. Moving on to item E, tonight we have award of contract to Stewart Spreading for water treatment residuals removal and disposal. Doesn't sound as much fun as sludge. But go ahead.
I threw that in there a few times just for you, so. Thank you, Mr. President. Before you tonight is the award of contract for the water treatment residuals removal, awarding potential to Stewart Spreading. This contract is for removal of lime sludge that is a byproduct of the water production process at the village's lime softening plant located at 891 Nell Road. The material is used in the water production process, then discharged into storage areas. From the storage areas, the material is then removed by an excavator, placed on a drying bed to remove the water from the material, at which point then it is hauled away. This process is typically done twice a year, once in the spring and once again in the fall. The material is typically used in the agricultural industry. It's for fertilizer for farm fields. The material is a highly sought-after material for these applications. After receiving the competitive bid from 3 different contractors, Stewart Spreading was the low bid contractor at $36.50 per dry ton. The estimated amount of removal for the project per year is 2,000 ton. Just to give you a quick synopsis on that, the total for tonnage per year is calculated off of the amount of water that is produced through that plant. So it can vary throughout the year, from year to year, depending on weather conditions and usage. So that's just our base number. We have never exceeded 2,000, so that's our kind of base number. Stewart Spreading has a history of performing similar work in this industry for the city of Aurora and other communities in the area as well. So at this time, we are recommending the award of the water treatment residuals removal contract to Stewart Spreading. If there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain those at this time.
Thank you. Any questions?
So moved.
Didn't we always use the first one? Senego or whatever?
We've used the first and the second one in the past at different times.
Okay.
There was a significant savings
I
right
see
out of the
that.
gate, with Stewart Spreading this go-around. So, like I said, the contract they currently have with the city of Aurora is obviously on a much larger scale than what we produce here at Montgomery. So, in talking with some folks at Aurora, they've been happy with the work that Stewart has had. They've had that contract for quite some time. So we're confident that they'll be able to come in and accommodate the village's needs.
And so this is highly valuable stuff, right?
In general speaking, there are some restraints to that. So in some situations, depending on weather, there are instances where the material does have to be landfilled due to the fact that they can't get into the fields, mostly weather-related. But it's pretty rare, yeah. It is a sought-after material for different reasons for fertilizer for the farm fields.
All right. Trustee Youngerman made a motion.
Second?
Any other discussion, comments? All right, go ahead.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
And Trustee Lee.
That carries 4-0. Thank you. Our last item for separate action, ordinance 1849, declaring surplus equipment, waiver of first, passage on second.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before you tonight is ordinance 1849, declaring surplus equipment for the village of Montgomery. I'm requesting a waiver of first reading and a passage or approval of the second reading to declare the following vehicles surplus. So we'll start with the police department vehicles. First is Unit 833, 2013 Chevy Tahoe. Was a squad car with roughly 110,689 miles. The next unit would be 834. Same make and model, similar mileage, 116,339 miles. Another additional unit, 814, 2010 Crown Victoria, 110,985 miles. The last police department vehicle would be unit number 461, which is a 2006 Ford Taurus
for 72,763 miles. Then moving on, there are 3 additional vehicles for Public Works we'll be declaring surplus. Unit 237 is a 2008 F-550, was our bucket truck with 68,582 miles. Next is a 282 unit, 2018 International. This is one of our salt trucks, single axle.
2008.
Or sorry, 2008, sorry, with 24,319 miles. And last is Unit 283, which is another 2008 International Salt Truck with 22,618 miles. Upon approval, staff will begin marketing these items for resale as the replacements for these vehicles have already been implemented into the appropriate departments. These vehicles will be marketed mostly through auction sites to bring the most value, resale value to the village. So at this time, I'm recommending the waiver of first reading and approval of the second reading for ordinance 1849. If there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain those at this time.
Go ahead.
I probably missed this, but what's the Tahoe with the lettering like 90% off that said police on it that's running around? Who's driving that?
I'm not aware of.
Chief, anybody?
Are you sure it's not a ghost graphic?
Huh?
Are you sure it's not a ghost graphic police car? It's supposed to be hard to see.
None of the Tahoes are equipped with the Ghost graphics. Those would be some of the newer vehicles, which I believe we don't have any SUVs, and the chief may be able to further answer that. But the only vehicles that are equipped with the Ghost graphics would be the Ford Tauruses.
Correct. I'm not quite aware of any Tahoe vehicle that should have any partial police marking.
Maybe it wasn't a Tahoe, but it looked like the lettering was off of it.
Public
90%.
Works did utilize, previously last year, we utilized 2 retired Tahoes that were squad cars. We've since changed the plates over to municipal plates to reflect that they are a non-police vehicle. They're not equipped with any emergency lighting. So we do use those for an additional vehicle at Public Works. Mostly the director of Public Works was utilizing one of those vehicles because he didn't have a vehicle of his own. The other is typically utilized as a spare. So you could be seeing one of those
But they
throughout
don't have
town.
any decals on them.
Right.
Yeah.
We stripped all the decals, all the light bar, anything basically solidifying that it's a police vehicle, we removed.
We have an unmarked Tahoe, a white
No, this
unmarked
is
Tahoe.
probably what he's talking about. It doesn't have lights on it, but it's, and the decal isn't there, but you could see where it was there.
There is, and
90%.
one more,
Gone.
there is an additional, there is still one white Tahoe remaining that is an unmarked unit. I do believe it has a light bar on top, but it is an unmarked unit. I believe that vehicle will be replaced next year.
I think what he's talking about is where the decal was, because you removed them. It
That
leaves
could
that little bit of a fade in the paint.
Right.
I think that's what he's talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
All right, never mind. As long as we're using it, somebody is.
And I actually have a question along those lines for the surplus equipment then. Do we take off the extra equipment that goes on the police vehicles before they go to auction?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. We take off, actually, the chief has since coming in, we've done a better job at trying to utilize some of the equipment and carry over. The problem is a lot of the equipment, mostly the cages and the seat apparatus that are in these cars are very specific to the make and model. So that equipment we don't tend to remove, but the lighting is definitely one that has value, radios, the docking stations for the laptop computers. Those are all pieces of equipment that, yes, we are utilizing. Typically, we don't replace those or place them back into newer cars, but we do use them for replacement parts.
Okay, thank you.
The revenue from these vehicles, where would that go in the budget when we sell them?
The revenue from those items would go back into the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund,
The VERF?
the VERF, yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. Thank you.
You only asked that question so you could say that word. I know it. It's the only reason.
All right, any other questions?
No.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
And Trustee Lee.
Yes.
That carries 4-0. Thank you.
Can we take a 2?
Yeah. We'll take just a 2-minute break. We'll get started. Items for discussion, we have a request from Circle K for a pour liquor license. I do not see them here this evening, so what would you like to do?
I mean, I can summarize it for you, and really, it's what we normally do, where we come look for you for direction on how you'd like to go with it. It's pretty self-explanatory. You saw in there, they would like to add a pour license so that they can get video gaming. I mean, they weren't trying to couch that at all, that is the reason they would like to do it. They put plenty of material in your packets there for your review, so with that, it's just what the board's desire is.
So what we usually do is more information required or proceed.
Well, I have a question. And I don't know if the chief is the only one that dealt with them, or if they spoke with you. I just want to know, were they given the history of this board and what our preference is for liquor licenses?
I don't know if you spoke with them or not. I know Debbie has spoken to them, because that's who they
Okay.
submitted
I
their
mean, I
letter
realize
to.
the chief would be
So,
too new to be able to talk about, 6 years of how we voted, but,
right. I can't tell you for sure if Debbie shared that information with them or not. So I guess I cannot tell you that for sure.
okay. Well, I'm a no.
I think it's safe to assume that
I mean,
she shared that with them, that we've
would
never
think so.
issued a pour liquor license
Right.
for something that's not a restaurant license, or we do have some bar licenses, which, as long as I've been here, we have not issued another bar
Right.
license. So this is
And
very,
they specifically have said they're looking like a tavern bar license, and
yes.
again, with the almost 6 years that it's been the same folks up here, we've never gone that route. So again, I'm a no.
Is it, yes, and I don't mean to cut you off. It's entirely accurate to say that we have never issued a license like this in this setup.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm a no, and I'm also hearing from residents that are beginning to get tired of the video gaming.
And I would agree. I heard from a handful of residents as well.
Were they the same residents?
I don't know, because we didn't have a conversation about it.
All right,
Potentially, I suppose. I don't
I'm
know.
seeing a head shake.
This is just a way of getting around being a casino, a little casino. And we've always voted them down. Oswego has many of them, but
Yeah.
we've always voted them down, and especially that area, I would say, no.
Yep.
I like that in the presentation, they have the sign up that the gaming is coming.
I don't know if that was here at this location, because they
Game
were
room
proposing
coming
an
soon.
addition onto the building. I
So,
think,
Yeah.
I'm a no.
the reality is, I don't think we'd entertain this in any location in our village,
No.
is my opinion.
I was looking at that too, and I hope that's not the location that
I was
we're
hoping
talking
not.
about, but I doubt it is.
As a point of order, does the police department have an opinion on it?
I walked there today, I just happened to walk through there using the restroom. Didn't quite match the pictures, because that's what I was looking for. Yes, they had to put an addition on the back, so I talked to Jim. He didn't have any idea what was going on, so I think it's a no.
Okay.
Can't give you any other take on it, it's just not.
A good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, clear direction?
Clear direction.
Perfect. All right, move on to item B. It's Orchard Road and Route 30 update. I kind of asked Pete and Jeff to put this on.
Right, Pete's planning on giving an update. Pete was unable to be here this evening. What I can tell you is that Kane County has awarded the Phase 2 contract for the Phase 2 engineering. Pete has reached out to Tom Rickert there to get an update, and we'll be prepared to discuss that at one of our next couple meetings when he has information back from Tom.
Thank you.
That is just for the intersection. That's not from
Correct.
like Route 31 to,
No, yep, that's just for the Orchard and 30
It's really
intersection.
kind of the bridge to the east or to the west, and maybe to what?
It is
I don't know
just
if
the
they're taking-
intersection.
Yes,
Yeah,
just the
it is.
intersection.
Yeah, but I know that it's creating a lane that goes across that bridge and a couple other things, but.
No,
No work on the bridge.
no work on the bridge.
It's all-
This
No,
was that
the
modified
shoulder
plan.
becomes a lane, and
Right.
then the
But the whole
revision.
idea, so this is the temporary improvement.
Yeah.
This is Phase 2, which is the Phase 2 engineering. After this, we would need Phase 3 engineering dollars and construction. And that's for the temporary improvement of the intersection, which I think improves it from an F to an D or an F plus. I don't know how that works.
Now,
Okay.
am I correct in thinking that typically, when the state runs properly, that this is something that the state would handle? This funding would come from the state?
If the state had adequate funding for, we might rank high enough currently to get the full improvements or partial improvements, yes. But assuming they had the funding and that we ranked high enough.
But this is something now that the Village of Montgomery and Kane and Kendall County have all kind of said, hey, we need to make this happen now, with the blessing of the state and knowing full well that this is something that we have to cover some of the costs on because our state's not getting anything done.
Sort of. It's not outside the realm for the county to propose improvements to one of their intersections that happens to cross a state route. And the village and Kendall, I don't believe, have been asked to participate in the Phase 2 project,
No,
funding-wise.
correct.
But we're moving
So
forward. We're
this is
pushing
all
hard.
village?
No, it's all
No,
King.
it's all King County. Yeah,
okay.
they had budgeted. All right, we'll get a better update, a longer update when Pete returns. I can guarantee it'll be longer. All right, moving on to item C, we have fiscal year 2020 capital improvement, infrastructure improvement, and other funds. Oh, I thought you left.
I moved.
I'm like,
No.
man.
He moved. Keep it on your toes.
Where my name's actually, yes.
Director Van Voren.
So where his name tag is.
Thank you, President Brawley. Tonight, we're going to discuss mostly the capital improvements budgets for the village. That includes capital improvement fund. We have now grouped motor fuel and infrastructure improvement funds together because that's how they're handled when we do the road program. TIF number 2, and then the vehicle and equipment reserve fund that we talked about earlier. The VERF. So in the capital improvement fund, our main revenue source is utility taxes. We looked at this on a 10-year trend, looking at electric. We've seen an increase of roughly 3% per year over that 10 years, but we've only budgeted 1% increase for fiscal year 20. Natural gas, historically, we've seen a decrease of 1% per year over that 10 years. If we only use the last 5 years, though, it's been an average increase of 8%. Again, being conservative, we budgeted an increase of 1% to $254,000. And then telecommunications, the historical trend is a decrease of roughly 4.5% per year. The last 2 years, it's only been a 2% decrease. And again, being conservative, we're only showing it's a decrease of 1% in telecommunications. Overall, if you take all three of them together, the average has been 1.25 million. And fiscal year 20, we're budgeting 1.26. So looking over that time frame, it stayed fairly constant with ebb and flow of the different utility taxes going up and down because of warm winters, cold winters, et cetera. The largest expenditure in the capital improvement fund is $1.6 million. We use those utility tax revenues to transfer money out to the debt service fund. Just a note there, in fiscal year 20, the 2008 bonds, there were $2 million payments. We made one in December of 18. The second one will be made in December of 19, and those bonds will then be paid off. Infrastructure improvement and motor fuel tax, as I said, we're grouping these together just in terms of looking at the revenues and expenditures and how much we've been able to do. Non-home rule sales tax, for 2020, we've budgeted $3.3 million. The The last 4 years, we've seen a total of 10.9 million. Motor fuel tax, we're budgeting roughly $500,000 for fiscal year '20. If we look at the last 4 years, it's roughly 2.1 million. So for fiscal year '20, we are looking at a $500,000 federal grant for AUCUT to be used with that project, and then intergovernmental cooperation, the $250,000 there would be from Oswego and Kendall County for the stoplight at Concord and Galena. So looking at the total revenues over the last 5 years, it's been $17.6 million. Going into expenditures, motor fuel taxes, as Jeff stated earlier, fiscal year 2020 is a project year, so we do build that up. We only do projects every other year, so this is a year that we do projects out of there. The total budget between those two funds is $5.8 million. The road program is approximately $4 million. AUCUT Road is just under $700,000 with the $500,000 grant. It'd be roughly $200,000. Concord and Galena traffic signal of $350,000, and then the shared use path and sidewalk gap plan. So just as a reminder on this, we're doing years 2 and 3 of the plan. So that would be $340,000. We have included the property tax rebate in the budget as well as we have in previous years. TIF number 2, we are starting to see much more property tax increment coming in for TIF number 2. We have budgeted increment of roughly $1.1 million and a rebate to the of the background tax to the surrounding tax districts of just under $300,000. So our net increment that will stay in the TIF is roughly $800,000. Due to there being additional funds or more funds there to, we're going to start being able to use more of those funds to do projects. So in looking at fiscal year '20, it may seem a little ways off, but 2 of these projects we're not looking to do until fiscal year '23 or fiscal year '24. But AUCUT Road widening, as an example, there are so many different pieces to the right-of-way along AUCUT Road that we need to start now in order to be able to really determine who has the ownership of those right-of-ways, especially when it gets down to this end where the Burlington Junction rail goes along AUCUT Road. Outfall storm sewer of $230,000, and then Nell and Orchard signalization. Here again, this one is out a few years. However, to go through Kane County permitting and to work with Kane County on this, we feel it's important to get this started sooner rather than later, so that's why you're seeing that this year. And then just for the board to see, we have included in the budget over the next 5 years $13.1 million in improvements in the TIF district over that time. And then last, the VERF.
Thank you.
We did increase the contribution from roughly $615,000 to $644,000. Expenditures, and Mark touched a little bit on these. Vehicles and equipment, we have 1 vehicle from Village Hall being replaced, 5 from the police department, and then 3 new vehicles for Public Works. The total expenditures for vehicles and equipment is $465,000. This fund also includes the body-worn cameras. We received a $50,000 grant. The police department received a $50,000 grant, approximately 50% of the cost of those cameras. Those cameras will outfit every officer. So other than that, there are a number of other funds remaining, but there's nothing large to note in any of those. So if there's any questions on any of the ones I have gone over or any of the smaller ones, I can certainly answer those at this time.
I have a question. When we sat down, we did our budget meetings, our 2x2 budget meetings. I talked to some of the other board members about increasing the property tax rebate from $45 to $60 dollars per home. And the board members that I had talked to were all in favor of that. And so I thought that that was pretty much a done deal. But as I see this, it's $45. Let me remind the board members, every board member here, that when we sold this thing to the public for the sales tax increase, it included a property tax rebate that we told the residents that we were going to try to continue to increase until eventually we were rebating pretty much all of their property tax value. Now, how long has the sales tax, the 1% sales tax gone into, it's been what, 3 years?
This is the fourth
This is
year
year
of our
4?
program, so around then.
And it started at $45, and we haven't increased it since then. It's time to increase it to $60. The government is not the best spender of someone's money.
I don't recall us saying we were going to continue to increase it. I know we had talked about we'd like to be able to get to a point where we weren't having to have any portion of the tax bill, but I don't remember us specifically saying we were going to increase the part of the rebate that came back to them. And
Then
if
how
you'll
do you-
recall, I went out and was educating the residents on that, and I do not remember presenting that to anybody.
Then how do you rebate the tax bill if you're not increasing it?
Well, I don't think anybody's going to argue with you on the fact that it would be wonderful, and it will be wonderful when we can get to that point.
I think we're at that point now.
I know, and you stated that. My only concern is we're in the fourth year of our first 5-year infrastructure road program, right? We had a 60-some year cycle on our roads that we're hoping to get down to 15 or 20.
Yeah.
So we are not even, and Pete could tell us, we're not even a quarter of the way there yet. We're in the last year, this coming year, of our 5-year plan. I think that is the perfect time for us to look at the next 5 years, what we think we can generate. My worst case scenario, or my worst nightmare here would be we arbitrarily increase this to a dollar amount that you talked about, and then we don't have enough to finish the 5th year of our program. I don't think that's the case, but I don't want to blindly start increasing that. So this next year, in this budget cycle, we've included funds for our engineer to reauthor a new 5-year plan, test the roads, see where we're at. Later on this year, let's look at what we can do to ensure that, one, we're doing the primary goal of the infrastructure road program is to fix our roads. And then 2, whatever we have left over that we don't need, rebate back. I don't think anybody's going to be opposed to that.
You're right. We just looked at this thing, and we just awarded over $300,000 no-bid proposal to our village engineer, and I'm only talking about $42,000. We dish out money for engineering fees here, or for these things here, or this here, or why don't, let's do what we said we were going to do and give some of the money back to the residents.
And again,
That's what we said we were going to do.
right.
I
So let's have that conversation then. My one question on that is, we currently have, let me put it back up.
Number of people?
Yeah,
2850 approximately.
So we have 2850 out of how many homes?
It's $42,750.
Well, no, problem is there were a couple different discussions during the 2-on-2 meetings. One was try and increase the amount, another was to increase participation. So we've got 2,850 homes approximately that are participating out of 6,300.
Roughly 6,300, yes.
So it also came to discussions that should we be trying, instead of increasing the amount, to look at increasing participation so that more people are taking advantage of it? Which makes a big difference than if you're talking about increasing participation and increasing the amount.
Then why am I just hearing about that now? Why wasn't that mentioned?
Jeff put it in the notes after I believe so. I read it in an email.
I
Yeah,
figured
you
we were
did,
going to have
you did
this
say you were
discussion
going
right
to
here.
increase
so
it,
you guys
or
could
have
determine.
people
That's the,
come and try to get on the program. But you have to remember, if you look in especially out west, rentals are not, they don't gain money back. And so there isn't 6,300 people that can do it, that are eligible.
And that's-
I wouldn't say,
rental properties are eligible.
rental properties are eligible?
The renter doesn't get the money
No.
back, but the owner of the
owner
property.
owner
property
gets
gets
it.
some money.
So this,
But rental properties are eligible.
I didn't read it that way.
at any rate, this is a bigger conversation that I
Yeah.
think we need to have.
I agree, 5 years is fine if we have a 5-year program, that's fine, but it's a good idea what Steve's saying, but if we have it 5 years, then next year, let's talk about it then.
No, I mean, I'm thinking later this year, when the report's done and we look at our next 5 years, and we have 5-year track record on our businesses to see where we're going to track in the future, then that's the perfect time, the most responsible time for us to take a look at this and see where we want to go. The last thing we want to do is increase this and then be short this last year of our 5-year plan, so then somebody's road doesn't get resurfaced and they get bumped. To this point, we've been able to include extra roads, I think. But we can talk about that when Pete's here. The other thing that I wanted to comment on is the bigger picture, right? People need to, we require that folks apply for this. Then we have staff look at all of these, analyze to see if they've checked all the right boxes and they've paid this, that, and the other. And then a certain number we do disqualify every year. So there's other options to where we can simply add the credit to that home's water bill. So there's a lot of different options here. You can get 100% participation. I don't know that we ever specifically talked with residents that this would be an opt-in. And I am increasingly disappointed every year when it is roughly a third of our village or a half of the village that's applying for this, when all of them are paying the increased sales tax. So I think we need to look at this and see what we want to do. I don't hear any opposition to increasing that up responsibly, but we have to ensure that the number one point of the program, funding our roads, is adequately funded. Because if something happens to Sam's Club or Walmart or any of our other huge sales tax generators, then the program would be seriously hurt.
I have a question for our attorney, because when the referendum passed and we put it into an ordinance, I believe we specifically said $45. So then we have to go back and amend that ordinance, should we increase it to the 60?
Yeah, I can look at the exact language of the ordinance, because it probably would matter exactly, what the verbiage was there.
We picked $45 because it was approximately 15% property tax of an average home, and instead of doing the math on each individual home, we took the $45 and each 15 was about 5%, or each $15 was about 5%.
And when you and I have had that conversation, and we haven't had that conversation recently, but that was always my question, is do we have to go back and amend the original ordinance based on what was passed by the voters?
We can look, I think it
We'll take a
said
look at that
at
and see.
least 15%. So we're committed to that. And I think everybody here would agree that the residents are very excited about this. And to date, I have not heard of any other governing body in our jurisdiction or anywhere near here that rebates leftover sales tax dollars. And so it's a huge win for the village, in fact, in the fact of doing $4 million in roads this year. And I think we will certainly be able to increase that. But let's take a phased approach to it.
I disagree. I think we should increase it, but whatever.
Any other questions?
Yeah, question for the chief. Do you have any equipment, after reading the article on the King County Police Department, how they have stuff out of date, how they have stuff that's 20 years old? Do you have any need for any material that you have out there that's, you know, expired or not in good shape, or? Right.
We personally don't have one. We could acquire one for the diesel program, I just didn't see a need for it at this point. Both counties have armored vehicles, and if we do call for one, we use. As far as other expired equipment that needs to be put out, as you know, at this time, we don't. This board has been very supportive of the police department. We stayed on top of the replacement program. Our vehicles and other equipment we have are in good condition. So at this point, I'm gonna say no.
I remember that 3 or 4 years ago, didn't we go in with the 5 or 6 different municipalities and we own part of something?
We went in with, there was a total of 4 municipalities.
We own a tire or something, one of
Exactly.
these things.
We had the smallest contribution, but it was from, I think it was from money from drugs or something.
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't care about the, having a tank. I'm just saying, like, for vests and things like that, everything's up to date.
We do have a vest replacement program. We work closely with Justin on our vest replacement, our radio replacement, our vehicle replacement. We have a equipment replacement fund just for those items. Everything we set up in the last year, we've actually set up for long-term replacement. So we don't run into that, well, we've got a big ticket item we need to replace. We're trying to get way ahead of the curve on that. I understand it does happen, but we have a system in place right now that should. And I'm not aware of the full market ownership of the
I have a question going, and this, I apologize, Justin, this is going back to the VERF fund. The body cameras at $100,000 with the $50,000 grant. Does that include, is that just the actual cameras, or does that include the storage and computers to take care of?
That does include the computers, the storage, everything. It includes,
Perfect.
yes.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question to that. Over the years, I've followed these different grant programs that provided grants for specific types of equipment for the police department. And I'm actually really, really pleased to see that we did get a grant. I'd just like to know where it came from. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, moving on. Any, thanks, Justin. Any new or unfinished business?
I attended last Thursday the Aurora Area Convention and Visitor Bureau Annual Meeting, and things are booming over in that neck of the woods, and I know we've talked about hotels and done some hotel studies and things, and during conversation with them, they are clamoring for us to acquire a hotel in this in our area. They're sending hotels to Naperville. They send several hundred, if not thousand, people to Naperville because they don't have hotel rooms available for them, because they book out when there's events in town. So it was a nice presentation. It was over at the Aurora Fire Museum, and again, nice presentation, nice job. The tourism from Illinois was there and did a nice presentation, so.
And that's a really cool museum, too.
It was
Awesome. I should mention that, as most of the board was aware, but for the press, myself, Jeff, Rich, Dan Geyer, and Engineer Wallers were in Springfield last week lobbying on behalf of the village and also Metro West Council of Government. We got everything we asked for, so everything is queued up and ready to go. But it's always an educational trip. It's kind of like marketing in the aspect that you never know exactly the impact you're making, but you're down there ensuring that your legislators and the leadership down there understand what our needs are as a community, as a 3-county council of government. And then also the next day with the 4 agencies that we met with, the IEPA, DNR, DOT, and the Department of Public Health, have some pretty specific items that impact our village and also Metro West. So it's always productive and tiring, and we're excited to be back. See, next year, I'll have Dan give an update from this.
Did
But
you
not
make
this year.
Dan carry everything as you run through the Capitol? Because, the new person always has to carry everything.
No?
Well, next year.
I had to buy the pizza. What are you talking about? Nobody told me about just carrying stuff.
Did you? Well, thank you, I appreciate it. All right, future meetings, we have intergovernmental committee meeting next Monday at 6 PM with a board meeting at 7. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session, so we won't be back here to discuss the appointment or dismissal of legal counsel. That's item A, and also to discuss litigation where the village finds such action probable or imminent, and not item C, and we will not be returning for separate action after the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
And Trustee Lee.
Yes.
That carries 4. Thank you.